We love meeting anybody who's interested in our community and seeing if it's a good fit. Do you guys have questions about our community, or what's your story?
We grew up in a fundamentalist Mormon community and went to church there. And after moving, we stopped going to church and doing it regularly.
Because we didn't have to go to.
Yeah.
The state of Utah was threatening prosecution because of our beliefs, because we were a plural family. So we basically moved because we were trying to be able to be a family without being torn apart or thrown in jail.
Hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Monday, December 23rd. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Robyn Brown sat down with her daughters as they went church shopping to talk about her, past in the world of polygamy. Interestingly, Robyn speaks about this in the past tense, which is something she's been holding on to this concept that she's still a plural wife, and now it seems like she might be letting this go. But something that she brought up in this clip is they are meeting with a church in Flagstaff. Now, I want to note that the pastor and the wife that are pictured here and the church that's named is not the church they elected to choose. And the church that they're visiting appears to be he says interdenominational. I don't even know what that means, but he claims that everyone is accepted and people come from all different kinds of backgrounds. And Robyn and her girls are interviewing the pastor, obviously for TV purposes. This is so awkward. It actually is reminiscent of earlier seasons when they sat down with the Presbyterian pastor in Vegas and considered having the kids go to a youth group there. Now it is Brianna and Aurora sitting down to speak about their backgrounds. And naturally, Robyn uses this opportunity to make herself the victim, because why wouldn't she make herself the victim? And she brings up the fact that if she didn't leave Utah, she would have gone to jail, or they would have gone to jail, which that's just not what happened at all. So this church shopping starts now, and Robyn's got all kinds of stories to tell. Check it out.
Go to.
Yeah.
The state of Utah was threatening prosecution because of our beliefs, because we were a plural family. And so we basically moved because we were trying to be able to be a family without being torn apart or thrown in jail.
The truly bizarre part about this continued lie about why they had to leave Utah just drives me bonkers, because if you know anything about this case, and if you have seen the police report, they didn't even interview the Brown family at all. They didn't interview Christine, Robyn, Mary, Janelle, or Cody. Police never made contact with them. Once, never one time, even though they've made all these claims about how police were showing up at their house and they were going to arrest Cody. Like, that never happened. It didn't happen. The police report took notice from public statements the family made on the show, and they reviewed statements they were making, like Robyn claiming she was going to be a wife, Cody claiming that he had all these other wives living in one home, looking at the property records to see how Cody was living with these women, and they were looking at the statute of bigamy. But the primary thing at the very end of the police report was that they were noting that there was this involvement of the Brown family in a show on TLC. The purpose of the show was to highlight and promote polygamy. Polygamy at that time in Utah was a felony. It is still a felony, by the way. The only reason it is not a felony is if it's only polygamy. Like, so they say, like, we're going to prosecute this man and he has these wives and he's purporting to have these 3 wives, and it's going to be a ticket. That's it. But everyone would have to come together in that union as under consent, not under coercion or force. But the polygamy crimes are still felonies that are still in that statute, and it goes up in levels depending on what the crimes are. So it's not decriminalized by any means, because the crimes against children, women, all of that is not decriminalized, but they weren't kicked out. And we'll get there in a minute.
Mm-hmm. Well, our community has a ton of diverse, it's one of my favorite things, is there are people who are ultra charismatic Christians. We have people who grew up Islamic, Mormon, atheists. It's actually one of the things that I find the most beautiful about it.
So would you guys be considered non-denominational then?
We like the term interdenominational because it's not negating other denominations. We
Right.
love other denominations.
Right.
We love them and support them, and a lot
Truth
of those
is truth.
people.
Oh man, I wonder what that guy was thinking on the inside of his head because the looks on his face and his poor wife, I would assume that would be his wife. I don't know though. The look on his face when Robin's like, "Yeah, we're basically fugitives on the run. We ran because we were going to get thrown in prison." And he's all, "Yeah, great, wonderful. Yeah, we accept all kinds of people here. We had people that were grew up this way and people that grew up Islamic and atheists and like trying to classify all these other religions in the same category as the criminal cult that is the Apostolic United Brethren is wild to me, but whatever. I understand that it's not the pastor's fault here. He is, being a pastor and, trying to show the world that everyone should be more like Jesus and accept and love everyone. But, this concept that they were going to be imprisoned is just hysterical to me because there was no threat to them getting arrested. The concern was that they needed to review records to see if any crimes had been committed, like bankruptcy frauds or welfare fraud, which had the Browns stayed around long enough and perhaps allowed them to look into it, they would have noted that Cody's wives would have been committing welfare fraud. And as a result of that, Cody might have been on the hook for the money that his wives were using because he should have been providing that support himself, but he wasn't. There's another factor at play too. It had to do with the fact that they were getting paid for sister wives. And so there's this whole thing about making a profit off the promotion of a crime. Now, I know we talk a lot about Son of Sam laws where criminals aren't supposed to profit off crimes, but there's also a concept where you're promoting criminal activity to make money, which is what Cody was doing on the show. And that's really something they were looking into, but they couldn't get information from the production company. They couldn't get information from the Browns. They couldn't get access to those records. So they fled in a way because Cody was illegally making money by the promotion of polygamy involving the show. And that probably could have been the direction they went, not polygamy in general.
Usually when I tell people about my religious background, they look at me like I'm wrong or I'm a sinner because, I was part of a plural family. Women get really defensive and angry.
Robyn lives in the land of delusions because this is hysterical. So she says that usually people, when they find out that she was part of a plural family, I hate how they use plural family because they use that because they don't want to use the word polygamy. They think if they use plural family, it can water down and make people feel like less ill about the fact that it's polygamists and it's a crime and it's a cult. So they say plural family. They've been doing this since the 1950s as a way to sort of like, it's propaganda. And she's trying to say that women, when they find out about this, are going to be defensive and angry, which doesn't even make sense. She said, people think I'm wrong and that I'm a sinner. I mean, other Christians might believe she's a sinner because she's allowing her husband to commit adultery. They're doing things like welfare fraud, bleeding the beast, tactics that are just not common or promoted in Christian churches, not Mormon churches. I would say like remove the Book of Mormon, remove the Joseph Smith stuff. The traditional Christian churches wouldn't be on board with bleeding the beast and trying to, disrupt the federal government and, bleed all of the money out of there by bankrupting them. That's a thing with the Mormon faith and the fundamentalists. But defensive and angry, I don't think she knows what defensive means because defensive means that a woman would feel like they need to protect themselves from feeling uncomfortable or admitting responsibility. So they'd avoid feeling hurt, ashamed, sad, or angry, being viewed as a failure, having to admit responsibility for an action. What I think she's projecting here is that she feels defensive and angry because she would have to take responsibility for her role and her actions and her choices in being part of a polygamous family. People like me are not defensive of her at all because I don't have anything in my life to defend. I don't need to defend to her that it's wrong that she's in a plural family. It is legally wrong for them to be involved in this union. Legally speaking, there's nothing to defend there for me. There's nothing for me to defend when it comes to my belief that the way that they live is wrong by the law, because that's a fact. She's defensive because she doesn't want to admit her responsibility of being involved in this cult and what that does to her, what that does to their kids, what it means in society. Women aren't angry or defensive at her because she's in a polygamous family. In fact, most women are angry with her because of how she treated the other women and took from other children and constantly deflects her responsibility. I would say women might be insulted and angry at Cody and irritated at the way he treats his wives, and women would be disgusted at maybe the concept of someone sharing a husband with other women and having to deal with the sex aspect of that. That's offensive. It's offensive. It's not defensive. But Robyn is a projector, so she's admitting she feels defensive and angry because people think she's a sinner. And she doesn't like to be wrong. So really what she was saying there is, people think I'm wrong and I get defensive and angry.
Men are more like, interesting. But then they also go shudder and go, I couldn't have more than one. These guys, they didn't seem to even mind. It was very inclusive, very inclusive thought process.
It's really strange that Robyn perceives it that all the criticism that is directed at polygamy is directed at her, because she says that men generally shudder when they think about having to have more than one wife. And I don't really know if that's shuddering. I don't know if that's the right adjective I would use to describe what men might think. Most men just think that, I can speak to my husband. My husband thinks it's ridiculous because how would you have the time to actually give your energy to that many people? We only have so many hours in the day. My husband and I are so busy with me working, taking care of our son, all of the stuff with his life, carting him around everywhere, doing all his things, maintaining our house, taking care of our animals, and then trying to carve in time for ourselves. His thought is it's gross that Cody would do this because he's not giving the women what they need or what they want. And I would never want to hurt a woman that way. It's not that I wouldn't want another woman. It's that I don't want that because I don't want to hurt anyone, because there would be no way to be involved in this lifestyle without hurting someone. And that's the one thing that bothers me about this world. It's in order for Robyn to join the family, she had to break the hearts of all of these women. And then she never takes into effect that she did. She broke their hearts. She ripped them to shreds. She annihilated Christine's, pregnancy and truly was neglected and ignored her whole life because Robyn came in and then had her own kids with Cody. The way that these systems are created, you're building a relationship on the hurt and the pain of someone else. That's why people would be offended with Robyn. And why people are offended with Robyn is because she doesn't take responsibility ever for her actions. She never admits, I joined the family, I caused problems, I hurt feelings, I took resources from other people. Never once thinking I disrupted a way of life. These children became fatherless. These wives were abandoned. It's always well, I got hurt too. And because you're in a system where victims become perpetrators and there's this everybody's getting hurt, there's a lack of empathy that goes every way because everyone's hurt. And so they don't want to see the hurt of other people. But for Robyn, it should have been plain as day because she never really wanted to be in a polygamous family. She just wanted Cody and she wanted to be rich. But what do I know? And I just want to share with you something funny I found from a judge because, the one thing that they've tried to spread over and over and over again on this show is that, the state was after Cody. The state was after Cody. In court at a hearing during this case, this is what the judge says. But that assumes the answer, that assumes that the threat is what caused the loss of income. And I'm saying in this case, how is the court to make a determination as to whether or not the claimed injury, the claimed loss of income or move to Nevada came not because of anything that the state did, but because of their employer's actions in response to their own choices to publicize their lives. Cody made a choice to publicize his life. He made a choice to put it all out there. And it wasn't the state's fault because they looked into it. It wasn't the state's fault that they were admitting on television that they were committing crimes. And it's not the fault of the employer to cut ties with someone that's involved in a criminal lifestyle, especially if they work with children, which was what Mary's case was, or if brands don't want to work with them because they don't want to be affiliated with criminal activity, and nobody wants to be affiliated with the possibility of human trafficking, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, child abuse, welfare fraud. Most companies, that's too much of a liability. Their court case was all about how Cody lost revenue and income because brands won't work with him because he's a polygamist and he wanted money. But they never talk about what was at the root issue here. They had declarations and affidavits from management companies talking about all the brands they couldn't sign, all the money they couldn't make as celebrities because they were polygamists. And it's because the state went after them, not because they were involved in criminal acts or Cody was. It's Cody's always the victim, and so is Robyn. I mean, the two of them play it. It's Cody's in court now in Utah. And I just want to say that, like, I would just love so much if at some point he was prosecuted for all of these crimes. I would love so much if he ended up in prison for doing what he's done. I would love it. I could hand the federal government all the different records and fraud and mortgage fraud and tax fraud that he's committed. It would be amazing to see him go down. And maybe that's why they move around so much, because Cody is, in his eyes, a fugitive on the run. And maybe Robyn still thinks she is too. But what are your thoughts about her view on religion and this pastor and the girls? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Bye, everyone.